It's been a very sort of sober week for Nigerians, reflecting on the events of the past 2 years, October 2020 to be precise, when the EndSARS protest held. And there was a lot of emotions and just visuals that reminded people of what went down 2 years ago. We still saw tear gas being sprayed at people who were trying to mark the day. And a lot of people are still expressing their fears about the fact that a lot of things haven't changed yet. But it's a good thing to keep that conversation alive as elections are fast approaching, a few months to the general elections in February, and hoping that the candidates who are running for office across board, not just for president, are able to make some of these issues front and center, whether it's security, whether it's police reforms, just keeping Nigerians as a whole safe in their fatherland. But away from that, the floods across the country continue to grab the headlines for all the wrong reasons. And we're going to be starting our conversation here today with that. I have here with me Hodo Orok, so a sustainability expert. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here.
A lot of people are confused as to why this doesn't seem to be a huge priority, at least on the face of it, for the federal government. Are we reading this wrong? We're hearing something like over half of the country being underwater at the moment, over 600 people dead. If that's probably about 3 planes crashing, to use it as a metaphor, that's how huge a number that is. But it seems like we hear people just going about their daily activity. We saw news today that the president is going to be leaving for South Korea and hasn't visited any of the states where this flood's happening. What's the situation? How bad is it? Is it worse than we are hearing, or are things been exaggerated?
Well, things are not really being exaggerated. You can see the statistics are out there, yeah, and we're hearing the news from places like channels and other media agencies. So really, things are not being exaggerated. It's obvious. It's here. We are with the floods. We have seen the impact on people and all of that. So going back to what you have said. Well, floods are natural hazards that, we need to prepare for. So I'll start from that. We need to prepare for them. One of those ways is by getting early warnings, and the forecast that we had from the NIMIT, the Meteorological Agency, and all of that about this imminent hazard. So really, right now, what we are doing as a country is more of damage control, because it came in met us a bit unprepared, and we have to face the consequences. The impacts are with us. So really, we have a situation in our hands that we need to deal with. That's true.
So I hear you on that, and a lot of people are confused as to why we were not prepared, because you say we're not prepared, and I think that's what's worrying a lot of people, because this isn't the first time. We're hearing stories about this dam in Cameroon, which continues to cause these problems. It's not the first time that Kogi State, for one, has gone through this dilemma of being flooded. But I mean, this year's one seems to be quite intense. What sort of preparation should have been done at this point? Because what this tells us is that next year this will happen again if we are not prepared. What should we be preparing for? How do we prepare? Is 1 year enough to prepare even?
Well, yes. The first thing we need to understand is that we need to take the science more seriously. We need to take the science and the scientific information that are given to us more seriously. Previously we've been hearing of all of this kind of environmental hazards over on the foreign news and in countries far away. But unfortunately, right now, it is here with us in Nigeria. So when we say climate change is real, it's real. And one of the impacts of climate change is the rise in sea levels. So what we have with us is that we have more water in the oceans as a result of the global warming that we are experiencing. So we need to take the science more seriously. And of course, 1 year is enough for us to prepare if we put in some measures, to get ourselves prepared. Because obviously, just like they did earlier this year, there's definitely going to be more seasonal predictions, weather forecast for next year that would come out early in the year. And then there will be suggestions, instructions. We need to adhere to these instructions. And we need to start now to, plan in a more integrated way at both the national, the subnational, and the local levels, to get ourselves ready to avert any of this kind of environmental hazards, whether it be floods or drought or whatever it is that would come as a result of the changes in our climatic conditions which we are facing.
I think we're being joined from our Abuja studios by David Arinza, who's a Sustainable Development Goals advocate. David, if you can hear me, I know you've been following the conversation. I want to get your perspective on this as well. We're seeing parts of the country completely cut off from the rest of the country, and the implications are very scary with regards to food, especially. Okay, I think we don't have David yet. We'll come back to that when we have him. But let me ask you that. The implications with food. A lot of the states where there's flooding have issues. Are states that basically feed the nation. Benue State, Kogi State. We're seeing, farmlands. We heard what happened in Nasarawa State with the biggest farm in the country. I think it belongs to Alam Limited. The entire farm was flooded. The implications for rice we're going to see in a couple of months. We're already seeing what's happening with fuel scarcity up north because tanks can't go past Lokoja to supply fuel to these states. It's the spillover besides the sad loss of lives as well that's worrying a lot of people. How long can we continue like this?
Well, if we look at what has happened in some other parts of the world, most times events like this are really a wake-up call for them. Taking an example from the Netherlands, the floods that they had in the 50s that really, got the government to begin to think, more seriously about how they manage their water systems and all of that. So I really believe that this is not a situation of how long. We need to start acting now. Like I've said earlier on, we need to put measures in place. All of the agencies, and the government. And I like to say that this is not just a situation of government alone, doing this. We all need to put our hands together, both the government, the private sector, and even the media houses. Yeah, let me use that because the awareness, the education that we need, for people to understand why we have some of these challenges, what's happening in our environment. We need to continue to preach this message so that everyone can be on the same level. Everyone can understand that it's no more business as usual. For the food issue you're talking about right now, yeah, that before now we've always been talking about food loss, food wastage. Generally, it's said that more than half of the food we produce is wasted, is lost. So I think this event calls for a better reflection on how we store our food, so that in case when we have incidences like this, we can have some food that has been saved for better redistribution and all of that. So I think definitely this is a time for a better plan, a sober reflection. As a country, we need to go back to the table and put our house in order, because climate change is real. We are going to be experiencing more of this kind of hazards. We need to listen to the science well. So if we've been taking it for granted, then we need to take it.
That's what I want to ask you now, because is this a science issue, or did Nigeria drop the ball? Because we keep hearing about, this dam in Cameroon, where the dam overflows every year. They do notify the federal government to say this is going to happen. And we hear that the agreement was that Nigeria was supposed to build a dam on their own side to take this water in. I mean, we've not heard anything officially from our government to either confirm or deny that, but that's what we hear. So this is going to happen every year, besides the fact that climate change is having its effects as well. So I guess my question is, what should the Nigerian government be doing now? Because this is already happening. A lot of states are still underwater. We're even hearing warnings in more states. There are parts of Lagos have been told to be on the watch because the Ogun River might also overflow very soon. What should government be doing right now at a time like this when we're already in the thick of it, sadly?
Well, we're already in it, like we have said. The warnings that were given by the Lagos, I saw in lots of messages going around on WhatsApp and other media channels to let us know that okay, the Ogun River and all of that might overflow. So it's not certain. Yes, I was listening to an interview that was conducted with the permanent secretary. It's not certain, and I would like to say hopefully we are getting out of the rains gradually. So we're actually in it now. But what we are doing, like I keep saying, is damage control. So the government, what we can just do is help those communities that have already experiencing the loss, redistribution of the rest of the food that will be saved because it's a harvest season, and ensuring that, okay, we can minimize as much food insecurity as possible. But going forward, we need to harvest, some of this rainwater and put in infrastructures that would help us to channel this water that, this amount of rain that we're getting into hinterlands, that is places that do not have much of this rain, because this water can be used for a whole lot of other purposes. So instead of it overflowing, instead of the rivers overflooding their banks and then affecting coastal cities, we can actually have good infrastructure in place that would channel this water, to better purposes, like maybe having a reservoir that is a lot of kilometers away from those communities, so that when this kind of situations happen, even as simple as ensuring that our drainages are cleared, because these are some of the issues that we have causing some of the flash floods that are within the cities as well. So really, it's more of a situation of what we can do going forward, because we are here. So what we do is, how do we help the communities that have already found themselves in this situation? How much relief can they get? How much help can they get in terms of health, food security for the women and children that are facing this challenge? And then how do we put our house in order? How do we put together a better integrated plan that will bring together all the experts to prevent this kind of event? Well, yes, I'd like to say it's a science issue. We have heard about the dam. It's a factor. But really, we have, like I keep saying, we have more water in the oceans than what we previously had. So with all of the issues around climate change right now, we're going to, it's evident that we're going to have more of this kind of events in the future. Not really at this scale, but definitely climate change will bring about more extreme events, be it heat or floods. Yes, because they would always be unprecedented. What we had now is more rainfall than what we have had in previous years, and that is what has led to this. So, but what we needed to do is, how do we collect this rainfall? Because this is fresh water that we can use for other very important purposes. So that's what we would have done. How do we collect this water, channel it into other uses, instead of it destroying our properties and leaving us where we are right now?
This climate change conversation, I know Nigeria is leading in that front, at least on paper, on the continent, But whenever this conversation comes up, I hear people say, Nigeria has too many issues. Nobody's really talking about climate change at this moment. Nobody
we are here now.
How do we have that conversation and let the average Nigerian understand what's happening and what they need to be doing at this time?
Education and awareness. Education and awareness, and it starts from the schools. We need to let our children know. We need to teach our students about this, and then going into even the businesses. We all need to take up a culture of sustainability. So when you say how do we get our people to know, it's education. We need to let them know, because it's here with us right now.
All right.
And almost everyone is affected.
We're almost out of time, but let me just quickly go to Abuja, and I think our guest is here with us. If you can hear me, I just wanted to get your perspective on this flooding issue that's happening. Where do you think we should be looking at the moment? Because, we're already in the thick of it, sadly. But what should we be doing at a time like this, especially from a government's perspective, you think?
Thank you so much, Ebuka, for your question. It's such a pleasure to speak about this issue, even though I have a very heavy heart towards the kind of losses that have been emerged as a result of the flooding. But when we talk about government and the role of government, Ebuka, in 2012, the National Climate Change Policy stated clearly, which was developed from 2021 to 2030, Nigeria lost 9.5 billion, in infrastructure and valuable assets. When they looked at the analysis across sector, it was estimated that Nigeria lost an additional 7.3 billion. If you look at the total of that money, we're looking at over 16 billion lost. That's at 2012. So we cannot continue to play politics with human life, and that's why we have to be very deliberate. Government in, government out. We need to prioritize the lives of Nigerians. What should the government be doing? The government should communicate its plan to be able to address this challenge that we have. One, we have a major infrastructural problem that needs to be addressed. There needs to be a deliberate plan. What are those dams that need to come on stream? What would these dams do? We've seen a lot of shifting from the goalpost, and different responses we've got from government when it comes to this issue. And the government say, oh, it's not only the Hausa Dangshin Dam that we need to focus on, even though this dam was supposed to have been completed almost over 20 years ago. And this dam was supposed to have a capacity of 2.5 the size of the Lagdo Dam, in Cameroon, which was supposed to provide its own cushion to this challenge. As well as why we have to address the dam thing. I mean, very brilliant contribution by our guest in Lagos, where she mentioned about education. When you buy either a bottle of drink at the roadside, or you buy a piece of snack, maybe, I don't want to public any of the rules, but you throw it out of your window, it goes into our drainage systems. When the rain falls, there are drainage systems that have already been built, at least for those roads that have been constructed with drainage systems. This water is supposed to easily flow into set designed water management structures, which we have currently blocked. We Nigerians have a role to play in addressing this issue. If we keep on adding our quota towards blocking these waterways or these various drainages that have been set up and built by the government, we will definitely experience flooding. That one is sure. But on the side of the government needs to come and tell us the plan. David, what are they doing? What are the plans for the dams that will come on stream?
Okay, David, I hear you. I know a lot of the things you're talking about seem very long term.
Yes, the bill.
Can you hear me, David?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly put this in because we're almost out of time. You're talking about dams and all of that. We know how long those take to construct. Can anything be done in a year? Because the rains are going to come back next year. The dam is going to overflow again. What can we do in the short term, especially knowing that politics is going to distract everything in the year ahead? Is there anything that can be done to prevent this from happening next year?
I wouldn't say we can totally prevent this from happening, knowing fully well that some of the solutions are long-term. But again, by ensuring that there is prompt alert system and there's an effective management of people from areas which are more prone to these flooding issues to areas which are less prone, and so relevant in fact, because the government, the World Meteorological Organization has already provided data that certain areas, even the NEMA, as at the Nigeria Emergency Management Agency, is aware of these areas that are prone to flooding. So if we know that certain areas are prone to flooding, move people away. People should not set up lives and livelihoods and businesses, and living around these areas for the time being. If we need to give these areas some time so that these projects that need to be done is completed to ensure that they do not continue to suffer these losses year in, year out, so be it. Let's move them to other areas. Develop those, we can call them temporary shelters or settlements that can ensure that people can live their day-to-day life and not lose their resources year in, year out. That is one thing. Effective communication and active response. And these are some of the solutions that the government can really take today.
Okay.
It doesn't take a long time to build temporary shelters and settlements for people to live their lives for the time being.
Well,
These are immediate actions that can be taken, and relevant relief.
Thank you very much,
needs to be provided for those who are already affected.
All right, thank you very much, David Arinze, for joining us from Abuja, and of course, Odo Arok, for your contributions. I mean, a lot of us, it's very heartbreaking to see what's been happening, and even more heartbreaking to see that the effort to curtail it is not as intense as it should be. So, our hearts goes out to everybody who's affected by this, and hopefully those in charge continue, or at least start, to do what's right by Nigerians. We're going to take a quick break now and be right back. Please stay with us.